Thanks everyone. Before I begin, I will let you in on a little secret, because if you, during my speech, think that I have sort of a weird accent, I will tell you why. To me, it's really obvious, because I'm Swedish, as you can see. So just if you wonder. So my name is Joakim Everstin, and I work as the innovation manager and also the technology evangelist for Sabre Travel Network here in EMEA. And today I would like to tell you the story of how we transformed from a completely closed and sort of protected developer community of about 200 plus developers, which were the only ones basically in the world that would have access to the full documentation and also to our APIs, and how we transform from that closed community to an open global developer platform. So I would like to do a quick poll in the room. How many of you knows what Sabre is and what we do? Hands up. Okay, so that's about half of you. For the rest of you, I would say that Sabre is probably one of the biggest tech companies that you don't know about. We are a global travel marketplace, and we are basically mediating the business between travel suppliers and travel buyers. So we have around 400 airlines. We now have 165,000 unique hotel properties. We have rail carriers, hundreds of tour operators, cruise lines, and we connect all these travel vendors to about 400,000 travel agents all around the world. And from an API perspective, we are a very proud member of the API Top 10 Billionaires Club. On a peak day, we process about 1.5 billion API messages. And that equates to, on peak days also, as we heard a number before, 100,000 messages per second. And last year, 2013, all in all, we had a total count of about 1.1 trillion messages processed by our host. And if you compare ourselves to companies like Twitter or Google or eBay and those really big API providers, I would say we might not process the most requests, but if you think about the payloads that we sometimes return on one single request, where it could be the lowest fare for the coming 180 days, I would say that we're probably one of the biggest data movers on the internet today. So I want to share with you today some of the best practices that we came out with during this journey from closed to open. So Sabre Dev Studio is our brand new, or not brand new, we released in May, but our new developer community site. What we wanted to do was, first of all, make it easier for developers to access our different APIs. We also wanted to create a brand new developer experience. I mean, Orin talked about Twitter making it very easy, very understandable to consume Twitter services, and that's exactly one of the things that we really wanted to do. And so the website contains documentation about all our services. We have prototype galleries where you can get inspiration on travel-related applications. We have a code gallery where you can download some sample code, amend it, and also use it for your own purposes. And on top of that, we also have something that we call the API Explorer. So by just signing in or signing up and logging into the website, you can get a test key for the APIs. And in the API Explorer, you can actually get the exact payloads that you would get from the production requests. So essentially, you can build an application by just accessing the test-based APIs. And so why did we do this? Why did we go through this sort of lengthy and very sort of difficult process? You know, today there is a great proliferation of travel apps and online travel agents, and this really drives an exponential increase in the sort of API consummation. Because as I said, in 2013, we served approximately 1.1 billion API requests per day. And that in 2012, that was 1 billion. So as you can see, there was an increase about half a billion API requests over 1 year. There's also a brand new non-traditional entrance that sort of creates a three-way collision between search, meta, social, and retail. And we really have to be able to accommodate these new players, as they will be our tool for us to be able to diversify our revenue streams. And ironically, this is not just about the next booking, because that will drive a booking fee, because it's all about unbundling our existing APIs in order to create brand new, much more smarter and targeted services, and then ultimately brand new revenue streams. And as you can imagine, the conceptualization and deployment of Sabre Dev Studio was not a small task. So I will just mention a few of the highlights and findings that we did during this journey. So number one, I will probably state the obvious, but you need to find an executive believer. I'm not talking about a sponsor to whom you can go to for sort of checkpoints and get feedback, and someone who can manage steering committees. I'm talking about someone that is as passionate as you are about what you're wanting to do, and also someone that can drive this idea or this project to the very top of the executive team. In our case, we teamed up with our chief scientist, and he's the guy who actually runs the team of PhDs. And these guys are the ones that are creating the algorithms for how we can derive some massive shopping results in sub-second response times. And as he fully understands the infrastructure and also all of the data assets and how they can be, how and when they can be exposed, we could very easily and very fast determine what was possible and what wasn't possible when we suggested these new set of APIs. So in the early weeks of the project, we created a lot of prototypes with nascent services to show and sell the art of the possible. And this really proved to be the major lever in selling this vision to the top exec team. So if a picture says 1,000 words, a prototype, I tell you, says 1,000,000 words. So that's pretty much how we got it sold into the top team. Number two, look for success cases in other industries outside your own industry to bolster your point in how you want to be successful. Some of the best success cases often comes from, as I said, other industries and innovators. And in our case, we looked especially at companies like Amazon, Bloomberg, and obviously Apple, who made the genius move of opening up their developer or their toolkits to the world, and thereby expanded their ecosystem by many thousand %. And a really good example of, or if you want to connect the dots in your own business, you gotta learn from those who actually created the dots. And here's a good example of that. One of our former colleagues in Sabre was the co-founder of XML. And I can tell you that he had some really interesting thoughts around where the API world as such is headed. And he was also very instrumental in getting us to where we are today. You also need to take sort of an inside-outside look when you sort of create your APIs. I think too many companies get caught in the trap of creating the different APIs in a vacuum. You have to really envision in your head what sort of experiences that your APIs can enable, and also which site features that would be powerful to syndicate via your APIs. Philosophical shift. This is a really hard one for many companies. You can't be everything to everybody, and how open is really open. Excuse me. When we launched Sabre Dev Studio, we noticed that we had a lot of our competitors signing up, accessing our APIs, poking around, and did we feel uncomfortable with that? Sure, that wasn't fun at all. But if you want to be a truly open platform from a cultural point of view, you also have to recognize that others can and will innovate in ways that you may not have thought of. And you have to be comfortable about that. From an internal product perspective, this is a very difficult mindset to change, because obviously product marketing, when they find a new idea, they want us to develop it ourselves and also capitalize on it. But if you think about it, this can also bolster new business development opportunities. I'm thinking like, excuse me, there are 20 million plus developers or programmers in the world today. And to me, that's a really, really big market opportunity. In the past 8 years, there's been over $4.8 billion in venture capital invested in over 750 travel startups. So, I mean, no matter how good or how fast your internal development teams are, they can never keep up to speed with that. I think too many companies make the mistake of treating the developer space as an afterthought and not as a primary customer. It's not a bad thing if what you're doing benefits your current customers, but don't make it all about that or vice versa. Don't get bedazzled by all these new sort of emerging business opportunities, as well as don't bury your business case in your traditional sort of product cycle. If you can help your existing customers, in our case, our online travel agencies or B2B developers, while also demonstrating that the ability to grow a brand new base of users, for example, meta, search engines, startups, and social sites, that's a real big win-win for your business. But that's a very difficult balance. Ready, set, wait. What do we mean with that? Well, test early, test often, because proof points really matters. The more success you can communicate early on, the better it is. We exposed our test APIs very early, both internally and externally, to specially selected customers. We executed agreements, unbundled existing services, and targeted brand new types of customers long before we had a 100% solid plan for that. Was that unnerving to some? Of course it was. Did that help us build a higher performing team when we officially launched? You bet it did. In this world, velocity wins. It's not just about who's got the best technology or the best pricing for that matter, although that really helps. At the end of the day, in our experience, it's who can get the customer up and running as fast as possible is the one that's going to win the business. Don't get married to one business model on day one. And try to push back as much as you can on early sort of revenue or sales pressures. In our case, we had identified about 14 to 15 different business model paths that we wanted to go down. And after a couple of prospect discussions and business agreements that we executed early on, we sort of narrowed all those business case paths down to 2 to 3 that were based on specific engagement, scenarios, and product categories. And they really stuck to our minds. It really wasn't about rocket science. It was a bit of competitive information, a bit of market feedback, and a bit of internal sort of modeling. And basically a combination of what works for your customers and your prospects, what is profitable and sustainable, and what can you actually support in terms of billing and tracking and also contractually. This one is also an important one. Expose anything that slows you down as early as you can, as loudly as you can, and also as often as you can. With so many moving and interrelated parts in a project to create the new developer platform and also a brand new developer experience, you can't afford to let one component get you hung up early in the process, because if you do, this will eventually become a snowball effect and it'll only get bigger and bigger and eventually unsolvable. When you run against the grain, as we did in this case, you're naturally exposed to inefficiencies, mindset challenges, and conflicting opinions. You need to have the voice autonomy and the executive support to really bat these things down. I'll tell you a funny story about, because we arranged an external hackathon in our headquarters in Dallas. So if you ever want to have a barometer of all the bureaucracy in your own company, this is exactly what you should do. You know, when we were all happy and, you know, we're going to run a hackathon. This is the first time we run it for external visitors and everything. Everyone was really excited. Then when we started working on it, we ran into problems like, you know, facility management said, well, we're going to have 66, did you say that, 70 developers having access to our Wi-Fi network during the weekend. Well, we need to find out if we can do that. But I mean, any given day in Dallas headquarters, we have 3,000 users on the Wi-Fi network. Why would that be a problem? And you guys should have seen when we went to the admin person saying, yeah, so the winner of the hackathon, we want to give a silver briefcase with $5,000 in 20s. And she only looked at us and said, you got to be crazy. Now, we overcame all these barriers. I was acting bodyguard when my colleague Irina went to the bank and got the $5,000 in 20s. And so we did it. But again, if you want to find out how hard certain small things are in your company, run an external hackathon. So to all of you VPs, managers, directors, can you please say with me in unison, there is no such thing as a shared resource. You got to get the commitment from the executive team that you will have dedicated support in every area. I'm talking about business development, account management, in development, in operations, in marketing, what have you, for at least the first 12 months. A shared resource will always have conflicting priorities and/or different directives within their own teams. As a reference story, my colleague Sean Arena, he was actually pulled out of his regular job as the marketing director for North America, for Sabre North America. And that actually resulted in the brand new organization around Sabre Dev Studio, and also driving the direction forward by creating this brand new team. So when we launched this website, he stepped in and continued to run that team as our Chief Commercial Director of Online and Emerging Businesses. You can do everything yourself, but why should you ever want to? Could we have built our own API management tool? Sure. Would that have slowed us down? Yes. Would we have spent more money on that? Probably. Is that what we're really good at? No. So instead, we selected to partner up with some companies that would actually be the answer yes to my last question. We partnered with Manager because Manager is really good at managing APIs. So that was a given. We partnered with GitHub for our developer community and also the repository for our sample codes, as many other companies has done before. In fact, we already had a developer community, but that was the functionality of that was not even close to what we felt we needed when we wanted to create a brand new developer experience. And finally, we decided to use Stack Overflow as the primary vehicle for communicating questions and answer questions around our APIs, because I think that's one of the most commonly used websites today for code-related questions. So lastly, you got to walk the walk. Everything from how you present, how you speak, how you dress. See, I got the red shoes on. The culture, the marketing effort, the business processes, and then people within your own organization, they have to be able to adapt to a brand new way of how companies do business. I got a pretty funny story about when our business development team went to one of our first customers that we signed up long before we actually released Sabre Dev Studio. It's a company called Hipmunk, which is a very innovative startup meta search company on the West Coast in the US. And the team came in there. They thought they were fairly dressed down with jackets and jeans. And the first thing someone said when they entered the building was, "Hey guys, the suits are here." So that's just an example of how we had to sort of realize that it's a brand new world out there. And we also realized very soon that usability feedback from this brand new type of customer is essential. Because we got to understand how developers and startups and emerging businesses think, because they have a sometimes very different mindset. There were so many times when we put our PowerPoints up on the screen talking about all the capabilities that our new APIs can do and all the benefits and how your company would be better if they used our APIs. And most of the times, these new startups said, "Okay, guys, get that marketing crap off the PowerPoint and tell me where to go, how to access the APIs, and then we'll figure out what the benefits are and how to use them the best way." You also need to be where the customers are. So we started hanging out in brand new social channels and attending a brand new category of events like Tech Week and TechCrunch Disrupt, and in fact we still are. And these have actually now also been incorporated to our annual sales and marketing plans. And we weren't just targeting new customer, we were targeting new ecosystems as such. I'm talking about angel investors, venture capital companies, and incubators, and you name it. And Yeah. So I'm going to wrap up now. I see I'm running out of time. So it's been a really great journey so far for us. And for me, personally, as a former developer, releasing Sabre Dev Studio was like opening up our doors to our digital candy store and to the global developer community. And since our launch in May, we've had over 1,450 users registering compared to 200 before. So you can see the massive increase in the user base, and also around 26,000 site visits to our developer.sabre.com website. And I do hope that you've enjoyed my story about how a very small but a very dedicated and passionate team in Sabre ran against the grain and enabled our company to be competitive in an ever so fast moving online world. Thank you.
So I didn't think we could have red sneakers, Elvis, and APIs all in the same presentation, but somehow you managed to do it. Yeah. In the interest of time, I just want to ask you one quick question. Okay. So you mentioned this concept of an executive believer. Yeah. Does that have to be a technical person, or could it be any executive in the company?
Well, I think it could be anyone, but in our case, it was a benefit because he had a full knowledge of our technology stack and what could be done. And he could say directly, no, that can't be done. And he could also help us to create the prototypes because he had the resources himself. Yeah, yeah.
That makes sense. So it can be very beneficial to have somebody on the tech side be an executive believer in supporting your cause and building APIs. Thank you so much for your time.